Hi, and welcome to the Passionistas Project podcast. We're Amy and Nancy Harrington. And if you enjoy listening to the show, please consider becoming a patron. Just a small donation of $1 a month can help us keep the project going, and you'll get rewards like buttons, access to premium content, and invites to Passionistas Project events. Today we're talking to Linda Goetz, actor, co-founder of the Newton Nomadic Theater, teacher at Newton Theater Company, and writer and director of two web series, Brillig and Adder Mountain. So please welcome to the show, Linda Goetz. What is the one thing you're most passionate about?
I guess I would say storytelling.
Tell us how that plays into what you do for a living.
I've been doing theater for a really long time, and to kind of come up with a character, you kind of have to create their story, and then it has to live within the story of the play. But I also have been making film, and what I love about filmmaking is using non-traditional objects as characters, whether it be an environment or whether it be a mood that you're trying to create, that it's its own character and that it also plays in with the story.
So tell us what film projects you're applying those skills to.
Well, recently I made a web series, and it was based on Appalachia in like the 1930s. And so I would really try to use the way of life of what it's like to live in the mountains as a character itself. And that involved making moonshine, it involved folk music, it involved expressions that mountain people would use with as much visual and audio and, background research, just to kind of create that world of isolation, living in the mountains and having their own way of life.
You've been doing theater for a long time, from our understanding. So what made you decide to explore theater from this new direction?
When I was auditioning for films or plays, you kind of are at the mercy of who's going to cast you. And so I think just wanting to create work for myself opened up a door to wanting to do more production-wise in the project itself. Out of necessity came this new passion of filmmaking and creating.
You recently wrote, directed, and starred in a web series called Brillig. Can you describe the premise of the series?
It is about Alice in Wonderland, and basically Alice is a grown woman, and she's at a point in her life where she's not really sure what her next step is. So it's like a grown-up Doctor Who meets Downton Abbey.
What inspired you to write that?
My son at the time was doing a production of Alice in Wonderland in elementary school, and I was one of the chaperones and helping him. And so I started reading Alice in Wonderland because I never read it. And it just became interesting to me that Lewis Carroll would write this. It just inspired me to write something about, a childhood friend that you might need in your adult life when things are difficult, almost like a Winnie the Pooh, Christopher Robin type thing.
So did you start acting as a kid?
I would put on plays in the backyard and in the driveway. And then just when I was in school, I would do summer stock. But, I really started doing a lot of it when I moved here to Massachusetts. I started to do it a lot more serious in my late 20s. And then I just started working with some really talented people. And so I would really learn from the people that I was working with. And then I started to study on my own. But as a kid, it's something I've always loved to do.
Was there a precise moment that you remember when you thought, wow, I love this, this is what I have to do?
I want to say no, because I think I always knew I loved it. And I always knew, no matter when I was doing it, I just felt incredible. But there was never a moment when I'd be like, okay, yeah, I should do this.
Was there somebody who influenced your interest in the theater or encouraged you when you were a kid to follow this passion?
A friend of mine who, in high school, we were friends, and he started a theater company on his own. And he went to this town we were at, and he asked for funding. And I think I was really amazed by his ability to create something on his own. Because as an actor, you're auditioning for someone else. But I was really influenced, I think, by this friend of mine who had said, I'm going to create something myself. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to do it. And he did it. And it was very successful. And because of him, I was able to do a lot of theater and have a lot of fun doing it, because I was doing it with people who were as passionate about it as I was. And I think I had a very hard time thinking that this is something that I could do as a living. And I think kind of like later on when I moved here and I just started doing it more and more, I was like, well, maybe this is what it's all about, having fun at work with people who enjoy it as much as you do. And it's not always the way you make your living primarily. You kind of have to hustle and do other things to make sure that that stays relevant in your life, because monetarily it's not always dependable.
Do you have a typical structure to your day, or is every day different?
Every day is different. I think the writing sometimes comes because something will just kind of be dormant inside, and then it just speaks on its own, and then I just start writing. I think they all kind of feed into each other, the acting, the producing, the writing, because I feel they all inform one another, because they all feel like one to me.
Do you have something that you consider the most important part of your daily routine?
I really try to work at whatever the project is coming up. You know, if I have a staged reading, I know how important it is to do the nitty-gritty work of it, of the everydayness. I make sure that I work on whatever is coming up and work on that every day.
Do you ever experience creative block or just feeling unmotivated? And how do you get past those feelings?
I think I leave it. I think if it's not coming, I just have to leave it. You know, especially if I'm writing and nothing's happening, or I just know I've got to walk away from it. And then the next time I come back around it, hopefully something clicked or something worked itself out. Or I definitely say if I'm blocked, I know I am. So then I know I can't push through it until I walk away from it.
What's the most rewarding part of acting?
I think it's the moment you're on stage and you're not thinking about yourself. It's fleeting, but it's a moment I think all actors chase, is when you've truly embodied another person's point of view. And with that, it really opens you up as a person, because you're like, you find yourself defending your character all the time because you understand them and you understand why they act the way they do. And those moments are almost like flying. I think it's what we all chase. It's almost divine.
What's the most rewarding part of writing and directing?
Writing, you might be stuck, what this person's going to say or where this person came from. Then you realize, I can make it up. This person lived 400 years ago and now they're here again. It's a moment of like flight that you're in touch with something other. And it's like you plugged into some creative consciousness. I think that's probably what writers are chasing.
We're Amy and Nancy Harrington, and you're listening to the Passionistas Project podcast and our interview with Linda Goetz. Check out Linda's 2 web series, Brillig and Adder Mountain, now streaming online. Now here's more of our conversation with Linda.
Is there something you know now that you wish you had known when you started out in the theater?
Yeah, I wish I knew that it's not personal, that the rejection, the criticism is not personal. It's someone needing to get their vision seen and you don't fit that vision. Or I think more important, don't take it personally. Don't let it get in your way. It goes back to that never give up. I wish I had learned that.
And what about your family? Were they supportive when you were starting out? And were there lessons that your mom taught you about women's roles in society?
My mom was raised in the South. So there was a lot of politeness that I didn't quite learn. And so she really, I think she struggled with that. She was a very brave person to kind of break out of the mold that she was expected to be in. But she still had that make sure you please everyone in her. And I think that might have stifled some of the dreams that she had. And I think I didn't learn that lesson. And I think I learned it in the fact that I saw that she wished she had pushed a little more, because I think she regretted some things that she didn't do. And I think I saw that. So yeah, that's a very important lesson.
Did you have other influential female role models as a child?
I was very inspired by, believe it or not, Madonna growing up, because I would see the criticism she would get, oh, she can't sing and she can't act, but she did it anyway. I was watching Evita the other night on TV, and I had seen Patti LuPone do it on Broadway, and I remember when she got the role and everyone said, oh my gosh, she can't sing and she can't do it. And I said, well, there she is up on the screen doing it. And that just reminded me of how much bravery she had to just keep pushing the boundaries of everything and really not get caught up in the criticism. And she had a lot.
What would you say is your biggest professional challenge, and how did you overcome it?
I think right now what I'm dealing with in my own sense is my age in the profession itself. I'm 50, so there's not a lot of roles, or the ones that I'm being called in for are either the crazy grandmother or the mom next door. And so I think that's why I'm writing stuff as well. When I watch foreign movies and when I watch, English, I see that women over 35 are actually being portrayed as women and humans that live, breathe, and, have a life. And so I'm constantly telling myself, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, because I get caught up in it. Because I'm an older woman, people don't hear me as much as they do the younger actress. So that becomes difficult. And I try not to internalize it, but just make myself heard. It's been a difficult time. Interesting to see the shift in when I was younger to when I'm now an older actress or considered more mature. So I struggle with that myself.
Do you feel like what's happening since this Me Too movement kicked off, do you hold out hope that might change things for you and for women in that regard?
I really, really hope so. It just happens on a daily basis. And so I'm really hoping that this just brings the conversation and what has passed for normal to the forefront. I really hope so. I think things are changing slowly, but I think it's, the awareness is starting to take root. I'm hopeful.
And do you think it's more important now more than ever, maybe for women filmmakers, women in production like yourself, to start telling more female-driven stories? I
do. I think, it's something we're not used to seeing. And so when you're not used to it, I think it's time to just get another perspective out there, and I think it's really starting to catch on. And I hope it just really continues to grow. But I think it's very important. And that's why I keep telling myself, just keep doing and keep pushing it, because if I'm feeling something, I'm guaranteed there's many women out there dealing with feeling disenfranchised or who have dealt with much worse. As many women-driven stories or women-driven activity that we can put in front of people, it just changes the narrative that we're so used to, the male-oriented.
Is there something that you look back on that you've done in your career and you think that was the most courageous thing I did and it changed the path of my career from that point forward?
Probably writing that first web series, actually doing something different than what I had been doing. Whereas, I'd been dependent on someone hiring me. And finally, just sitting down and writing something and really enjoying it and really going on with it, as opposed to stopping midway, like this is spinning off, this is so stupid. But just really saying, no, I'm going to finish this. And I don't know how it's going to come out. And I don't know what the final product will be. But it's happening. I'm doing it. And I think that to me was the turning point, because I think that almost changed something in myself that said, you've got nothing to waste but your own life. So there's no reason why you shouldn't pursue whatever you're so passionate about. And I think that first web series just was like, oh, this is fun. I can do this. I can make this project happen. That really made it real for me and made it seem like, yeah, there is another way for you to go.
What's your definition of success?
Being passionate about what you do, even if it's a play in the garage, something you wrote, gardening, just something that fills you. That's success. Something makes you get out of bed in the morning. Something that just drives you to go on. That to me is success.
What do you think is your proudest career achievement?
One of the proudest things was hearing my dialogue being spoken by someone else. Hearing something I wrote and another actor was saying it. I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool.
What advice would you give a woman who wants to pursue a career in theater?
Do it. That's my advice. Do it. Ask anyone you know who's doing it already. Jump right in. Do it.
And is there something on the local level maybe that you feel like people should know?
Maybe there's community theater around you, or maybe there's an internship that you can do 2 nights a week at a regional theater, and there's an acting class that you can take so you can really see, hey, is this something that I am interested in? Is this something I really want to do? And I think you can always get your feet wet without having to give up your life and go to New York or LA. You can make the choice of, I'm going to try writing a 10-minute play. There's tons of 10-minute play festivals, and Google is a great tool for anyone. You can basically learn how to do anything by looking it up now. I think this is the time where the middleman is not as important as it used to be. I think you can find out for yourself. There's so many resources, because I believe that there's just so many people out there that are interested in doing the same things that someone is interested in, that you can learn from people who've already done it. You might skip a hard lesson by talking to them. But I think, there is so much in everyone's community that they can find out if this is something that they want to do. And they don't have to invest a fortune, and they can just put one foot in and see if it's something that calls to them. And so a lot of times you won't know unless you try it.
What's your secret to a rewarding life?
Never giving up on something that gives you the most pleasure. You've really got to be kind of stubborn, because a lot of people will say no. But I always think of Ed Wood, who made, Plan 9 from Outer Space. He must have had a blast making that movie, and it was his passion. And I'm sure everyone said, oh my gosh, this is the worst idea for a movie in the world. But he did it, and he went ahead and made it. And now everyone still talks about it.
Is there one lesson that you've learned from acting and the theater that sticks with you in your everyday life?
Knowing yourself really well, inside, outside, the good, the bad, the ugly. If you know who you are, you'll know exactly what you want and why you want to do it. It's very difficult to find out that you've gone after something and it wasn't even something you wanted. It was something you were told you wanted. And I think knowing how you work, how you don't work, what you need to work on, that can only help you in everything, I think. To me, that's really important, is really knowing yourself and really not being afraid to know that person.
Do you have a mantra that you live by?
Never give up. Never give up. It changes daily, of course, but today, that's the mantra. In the face of adversity, and it'll be there all the time. But if you can keep it in your mind, nope, never give up. Today might have not been the day, but I know what I want. I know what makes me happy, and I'm not giving up.
Thanks for listening to the Passionistas Project podcast and our interview with Linda Goetz. Check out both of Linda's web series, Brillig and Adder Mountain, now streaming online. And be sure to subscribe to the Passionistas Project podcast so you don't miss any of our upcoming inspiring guests.